As a medical doctor, this is a really common question that I get all the time. Can the Mediterranean diet be helpful for diabetes? In this video, we'll go over whether the Mediterranean diet can be useful for diabetes and why, so that by the end, you'll have a really solid understanding for how you can prevent or manage your diabetes using your diet. Hey there, I'm Dr. Anna. I'm a medical doctor. I was trained in Italy, and on this channel, you are gonna learn how to master your health. Okay, let's dive right in. So for those with diabetes, the question is all about managing our blood sugar. But before we can describe exactly how to do this with diet, we need to make sure we lay down some foundational concepts and understanding of what blood sugar is all about. And that's what brings to the forefront the discussion of metabolism. So metabolism is a really big topic, and I'm going to describe this for you in as simplistic of terms as I possibly can so that you have what you need to be as healthy as possible. So here's the thing about healthy metabolism, and we'll describe this in light and in context of healthy diets and healthy eating. So what is metabolism, first of all? Well, quite simply, metabolism is all of the chemistry that is occurring in our body so that we can extract energy to use in the cells of our body. And we do that from extracting energy from food. And the other side of metabolism is that after we're done taking in energy, we have to spend energy for all of the important functions that our body does. Think about all the things that our different organs do. Our brain needs us to be able to see, to hear, to think, to feel sensations in our whole body, to send commands to our different organs. Our kidneys need to produce urine and to regulate sugar and salt in our body. Our liver is regulating a lot of other metabolic functions. Our heart is pumping blood all over the body. Our lungs are extracting oxygen and putting that oxygen into our blood to send out to the whole body. You get the idea. Our body does a lot of stuff for us, and in order to do all that stuff, it has to have enough energy. And in order to have enough energy, we need to make sure we can take energy from the food that we eat. And that is what metabolism is all about. So healthy metabolism is rooted in, you can probably guess, making sure that the quality of the food that we are taking in is as high as possible. Because the higher the quality of the food is, the easier a time our body will have to extract that energy to then do all of the stuff we talked about. So the name of the game here is improving the quality of our diet. Now, how to structure a healthy diet. So this is a really debated topic. And to be honest, there's not one perfect answer to this, but what I'm going to describe now is what I like to call the healthy framework or the healthy trifecta of what healthy eating should look like, no matter the kind of diet you like to follow. So here's the healthy trifecta. Really simply, every single time that we eat, anytime it's a meal or even just a snack, we want to make sure that we're targeting 3 main nutrient groups that are incorporated into whatever we're eating. We want to make sure we have enough fiber, healthy fats, and protein. Why is this? Well, all 3 of these components individually help slow down our digestion. And slowing down our digestion is important for so many different reasons. First, it's going to give our body enough time to extract the nutrients from the food. So getting that energy, getting the vitamins and the minerals and all of the other healthy properties out of the food and into our bloodstream so that it can send that all around the body and help boost metabolism. But beyond slowing down the digestion for giving enough time, it's also really important to help the body produce enough hormones during the digestive process to make sure this is all functioning optimally. Now, there's a lot of chemistry going on inside of our digestive tract when we're breaking down food or digesting the food. And in order to have the right juices, the enzymes, and the hormones and neurotransmitters, we need to make sure that the input is correct. And that means the food is correct to send the right signalers to produce the right amount of juice. And in order to optimize that whole process, we want to optimize the input, which is the food. But now here's a third component of why slowing down digestion is so crucial for a healthy metabolism. And this is what brings into play a concept called insulin resistance. So here are the basics of blood sugar. When we eat food, we are breaking it down with a lot of chemical reactions in our stomach and in our small intestine so that then we can get that food into molecules that are able to be absorbed into our bloodstream. And one of the main molecules that is used for fuel in our body and is used to extract energy is glucose or sugar. So when we measure our blood sugar, we're actually measuring the amount of glucose that we have in our bloodstream that gets there from a whole host of mechanisms, but ultimately is extracted from the food and is regulated by our metabolism. And part of metabolism are all of these hormones. And one of the main players when it comes to blood sugar regulation is something called insulin. So really simply, we eat food, we break it down, it becomes glucose as its main molecule. It then gets exited into the bloodstream. Then ultimately, that blood sugar is sent anywhere in the body it needs to go so that a cell can then extract it, take it up, do more metabolism chemistry, and we're getting energy from that. But the ticket is, think about your brain, for example. Your brain is working 24/7, 365 days a year for the entire duration of your life. It is never really off. Even when you're asleep, your brain is functioning. And in order for that to happen, it has to maintain enough energy and have enough fuel to do that. So for this reason, our blood sugar always stays within a certain range of numbers. And that's why when you go to the doctor, your doctor's often checking your blood sugar and making sure you're within the healthy range. Because if it's too low or it's too high, there are consequences on both ends of the spectrum. So how do we actually maintain blood sugar at the same level pretty constantly throughout the entirety of our days and our lifespan? Well, in fact, we're not just constantly eating a little bit every hour. That's totally not how the body works. Instead, we have a hormone that's taking care of this. And there's a few hormones here that play a role. And one of those main ones is the insulin. So the insulin's job is to say, wow, when the blood sugar is too high, I need to help bring it back down. Now, what can happen is that if our diet is unwell and we are not set up for a healthy metabolism, and that's happening over many years, the insulin that we do produce, and it comes from our pancreas, doesn't work as well. And it doesn't work as well to a point where we can't bring our blood sugar back down. Remember, insulin's job is to bring the blood sugar back down to a healthy level when it's high. So what happens if your insulin stops working? Well, in insulin resistance, this is the problem. We're still making insulin, our pancreas is producing it, but if it's not working well enough, it doesn't really give the effect it needs to give to bring the blood sugar back down. What happens over time is your pancreas then starts to produce even more insulin. And if this is going on for a really long time, months or years, and it's going unchecked, eventually the pancreas sort of caps out of its capacity, and lo and behold, you're actually not able to make insulin well anymore. And this is why in late stage diabetes, people need to actually take insulin in as a drug, as part of their medication regimen. Insulin is so important for maintaining a healthy blood sugar regulation. And when this problem gets perpetuated for a long period of time, it kind of spins out of control unless we are managing it well. This is why diabetes can be so tricky to manage, and it's really challenging for both the providers trying to manage it, but also for the patients, which are a lot of you. Okay, so that was a lot of scientific ramble jamble. What are we actually talking about, and what do you need to know here? This is the good news. We can actually prevent this problem of insulin resistance. And in certain circumstances, if it's already going on, we can actually reverse this process with some medication and with diet. Sometimes even with diet alone. So how do we actually do this? Let's break it down. And by the way, if you're liking this video so far, or if it's giving you value, please subscribe to this channel. I am here to dedicate my time so that you can learn what you need to be as healthy as possible. So spread the word. Okay, so I said that we can sometimes prevent or even reverse things like insulin resistance and this metabolic mayhem with diet. So this is where the Mediterranean diet comes into the conversation. What is it about the Mediterranean diet that makes it so healthy? Well, there are several things, but one of the main things is that it gives us those 3 healthy nutrients that I talked about at the beginning of this video for helping slow down digestion. This is that fiber, healthy fat, and protein. In other words, the healthy trifecta. So what foods specifically in the Mediterranean diet give us each of these nutrients? Well, first, the fiber. Fiber is going to come from a lot of plant foods. So we're going to get this from our produce or our vegetables or our fruits. We're going to get this from legumes, things like beans or lentils. We're going to get this from nuts in whole form or seeds in whole form. So think of this like any nut or seed you can imagine. And then we'll also get a lot of fiber from whole grains. So all of these plant foods in whole form are going to give us excellent sources of fiber for our digestion and for our health. So what about healthy fat? Well, I think this is where the Mediterranean diet gets a little bit famous because it's so abundant in some of the healthiest fats there are. A lot of plant oils like olive oil and avocado oil, healthy fats from fatty fish, which is going to provide us a lot of omega-3 fatty acids, and then other plant foods like avocados, for example. These healthy fats are really going to slow down digestion, and they are so abundant in the Mediterranean cuisines. And then we have protein as our third component of the healthy trifecta. So lots of protein sources are very helpful in the Mediterranean diet. We have things like plant-based protein sources like legumes or beans and lentils, from nuts or seeds, from whole grains, and then from things like eggs, fish, lean poultry, some types of dairy like Greek yogurt. So as you can see, there are so many foods in the Mediterranean diet that are going to provide our body with the essential nutrition that it needs to regulate metabolism as optimally as possible. So I'd like you to now comment below and share with us, which of these foods that I just described are you already eating a lot of abundantly in your diet? Which are your favorites? And then which foods are you struggling with? Share with us because we are all here to support each other. Okay, so what about other health benefits of the Mediterranean diet that make it a good candidate for a diet for diabetes besides just slowing down digestion? Well, there are several other things about the Mediterranean diet that have all been linked to improved diabetes management or prevention in research. So first, which we described before, a Mediterranean diet approach to eating is going to help reduce insulin resistance, which as we mentioned is a huge problem and often an underlying cause of type 2 diabetes in people. And then a Mediterranean diet is going to improve our cardiovascular health. So this can come from things like a decreased amount of saturated fat that comes from animal sources, fats like butter or lard or tallow. All of these fats have been linked to increased risks of cardiovascular events like heart attacks and strokes. And so by default, when we're decreasing the amount of saturated fat from animals in our diet, from things like red meat, we're actually improving our cardiovascular health just from that. But it's not only from the reduced saturated fat. In fact, eating a very plant-based whole foods diet is going to help reduce our sodium intake because we're probably not buying a lot of packaged processed foods that are so laden with sodium on our grocery shelves. Instead, when we cook from whole food form, we're often needing to add the salt in ourselves, and quite often we're gonna add way less than a manufacturer would. So reducing our sodium is also going to improve our cardiovascular health. And then there's the other benefit of the Mediterranean diet, which is that often people will lose weight eating this diet if they're coming from a diet before that has a lot of processed, refined foods, and they're not getting a lot of exercise. The Mediterranean diet and the Mediterranean way of life is a very healthful and all-encompassing healthy approach to living that supports a really balanced diet that's going to help make you feel full so that overall in your day, you're probably going to eat less, and it encourages a lot of exercise and activity and general daily movement. And we know that movement is a huge component of weight loss, and it's honestly really crucial for health overall. And we also know that weight loss in and of itself helps regulate blood sugar, which, as we described at the very outset of this video, is the most important thing when it comes to diabetes management. And then the Mediterranean diet has also been linked to reduced inflammation in excess in the body and improved immune function. And we now appreciate more and more that obesity-related diseases, diabetes is one of them, has a very high level of inflammation that is linked to it. So the more we can reduce excess inflammation, the more we're actually improving our metabolism and our overall metabolic health, which is really important for diabetes management. So we just covered a ton of information, and I have a link in the description below to an article from the CDC that describes this whole topic really well, and it's a really nice summary article. I definitely encourage all of you to go read that. Now here's the question at hand. Is the Mediterranean diet the only healthy eating approach that is good for diabetes management? Well, no, I'm totally not saying that. There are actually a lot of ways you can eat healthfully, and you can think of this as any diet that is going to incorporate the healthy trifecta, the fiber, the healthy fat, and the protein, encourages a lot of movement and activity throughout your days and decreases some of the problematic things for our overall health, like high amounts of animal-sourced saturated fat, high amounts of sodium, etc. Any of those things, as long as they're included, is going to be what I would probably call a healthy approach to eating. So whether you want to divide up the carbs versus fat ratios completely differently, on the one end of the spectrum, it could be like a ketogenic diet that's almost no carbohydrate and almost all fat. And on the other end of the spectrum, you could end up eating a pretty low fat or moderate to low fat diet. That could even be a vegan diet that's all plant foods, really high in a lot of fiber and probably a little bit lower in fat. That is okay. You have to find what works for your body and find what works for your life. But I think the Mediterranean diet is just the tastiest and most sustainable healthy eating approach there is under the sun. That's why it's my absolute favorite. Okay, so at this point, I'm sure you're ready to just dive into the wonderful world of the Mediterranean diet and eating, because it is so much fun. And I have an entire playlist for you up here on how to get started with this eating approach. Jump into that playlist and I'll see you in there.